Before the current school of Rosseau Lake College was on this property, it was the traditional land of the Anishinaabe. When the British had defeated the French and took control over New France in 1760, conflict of land and timber rights had erupted between the Sulpicians and the Aboriginal people at Knessetech. In 1877, the Department of Indian Affairs had conversed with the leaders of Oka. The chief Joseph Onesekrat, and along with others, had decided to leave to settle somewhere in Ontario. On October 20th of 1881, 70 adults, 63 children had moved to the 15,000-acre land near the Parry Sound district, starting 8 kilometers away from Bala. In 1869, 5 brothers, Thomas, William, Henry, John, and Arthur, wanted to start a new life. When they arrived at Toronto, Thomas left to pursue a career in a business, while the other 4 brothers traveled to Muskoka, where they built Cameron's Bay. In the spring of 1870, they had built a small house on the property. Later on in 1874, 4 men had made the travel from Toronto in late August. Then on September 11th, when they visited the lawyer Morrison's house, they were made to sing a song. Only a few days later, William sold a portion of shares to Henry. Later in 1880s, Henry D. Ditchburn bought a residence near Inglebrook, which was aspired to be the immigrant shed. The Pratt Hotel, which on the same land as Henry Ditchburn's cabin, had burnt completely down. Henry, seeing an opportunity, had built 3 additional cottages on the land he acquired. 26 years later, William had sold the lot to Henry for $100 and moved in the community or Rosseau. Due to Henry's growing boat-making business and traveling around for his business, in 1906 he decided to sell it. John and Flora Eaton purchased about 4.5 acres, also known as The Pine, from Henry Ditchburn. At this time, the Eatons had designated the property as Kawandag, an Ojibwe word meaning the meeting place of the pines. In 1912, the Monteith brothers bought surrounding lots and built a large portico at the sides of 4 large white pillars. The front looking towards the lake, called Westgate. Then in 1916, completion of Westgate and the removal of the Ditchburn rental cottage, named Invermay, after it was purchased by the Eatons. Starting in 1920, a tennis court, golf course, and boathouse were built later. Later on in 1945, Lady Eaton sold Kawandag to Oscar and Vera Bartels. A few years later, in 1949, Kawandag Lodge was first purchased by the Margisons in the spring. The Kawandag ground needed quite a few improvements. A new frame cottage was built using the existing wood. After 10 years, 1959, of running the meeting place of the Pines as a successful business, the Margisons decided to sell in September. Kawandag Lodge was sold to Donald Gallagher. Later in the year 1963, operating funds were insufficient to begin another year of operation. The Kawandag property was sold to 2 men, Roger Maris and Morris East. Their first season of running summer events in what they then called Fort Kawandag went very well. During the spring of 1966, a plan was proposed where the Kawandag would become a small independent school, the Rosseau School. It was to be situated at Kawandag, opening in the fall of 1966. In 1967, they had reorganized the opening of Rosseau Lake School. The summer school closed because of many issues like water supply and the heat problem. It then opened again in September 12th. A classroom was built on the old laundry slab. There were 3 new residence cottages built. The cottages were completed in the autumn of 1968. The first full set of classroom was completed in the fall of 1969. On August 1st, 1969, Rosseau Lake School was designed as a charitable foundation with the Department of National Revenue. In 1972, Rosseau Lake School had their first fire, which burned down the classroom. It was believed to be caused by faulty wiring. On January 30th, 1973, the R.H. Perry House was totally destroyed by fire. Too many fires seem to have brought forth a decision of ending Rosseau Lake School. On November 19th, Mr. Ed Gates informed a disbelieving staff and student body that the school would close at the end of the term. November 22nd, 1973, people had refused to accept the reasons for closing. They protested by resigning from the school. June of 1974, under the guidance of Christ Steer of Toronto, the new board had completed the much-promised field just before closing in June. Mr. Perry was reinstated as the headmaster. In May of 1975, 3 more school buildings were lost to fire in the span of 2 weeks due to arson. They then decided to build a new residence named Clarkson House. In June of 1976, Brock House was completed by the fall, and the first annual out trip took place. Rosseau Lake School was then accepted into the Canadian Headmasters Association. In the fall of 1980, the dining hall was completed.
So today, in 2019, Rosseau Lake College is Canada's smallest boarding school, which allows us to do some really interesting things. So we have our outdoor focus and our discovery days, interdisciplinary programming in the academic level. We got everybody involved in co-curriculars and strong enrollment. We have 100 students and growing. We have a waiting list of 40 students, and we have no debt and money in the bank and doing really well. So it's a positive outlook for, even as a small independent school way up in the woods, we're excited that we have a strong future ahead.